Right now, our table just has generic names for each of the columns, V1, etc. But if we go back to our input file, I'm going to go to the root of my pipeline, input, downloads, and I'm going to open the CSV file to take another look at the file we're reading in to make this data frame. And the second row of this file has the column headers from the original data set coming from our Campbell data logger. We have a timestamp, a record number, a voltage difference, a panel temperature, and the par flux. So perhaps we want to read these in as the names of the columns of our data frame, as opposed to just these generic names, V1, V2, V3, etc. So if I go back to my R Markdown file, and here's where I'm reading in the table, I want to add another read table in order to read in just one row to give me those names. And it's going to be the same file. So first of all, I'm going to create an object called path. And I'm going to go ahead and specify path as this path to the file, because I'm going to need this value twice. So I don't want to have to type all of this in twice. I'm going to cut that and copy it here. So now path is going to be a character string with this path to the file in it. So I can use the variable path here. And also then I need to do another read table, but I need to use other features of read table in order to get just that one row with the headers in it for my columns. So I'm going to say the file is going to be path again because I want to read from that file. The separator is still the comma because this is a CSV file. So similar to what I have down here, my separator is a comma. But now, instead of skipping 4 lines, I just want to skip 1 line. If I go back to this file, there's just 1 line of data before the data that I want. So I just want to skip 1 line. And also, if I do a help on read table, we'll see that there is an argument called nrows that gives us some control over how many rows I need. By default, the value for the nrows argument is -1. If I don't give it a value, then the value it's going to take on is -1. And -1 means read as many rows as there are in the file. But in this case, I only want to read 1 row, just this 1 row that has the headers in it. So I can change the nrow argument value to 1 to specify that I want it to read just 1 row. And we can call this perhaps something like headers, because we're reading the headers for the column. And then for my read table where I'm reading the data, I have the option of specifying the call names argument. And this means that I'm telling it specifically what call names to use for the data frame I'm reading in from this table. So I can just use the headers that I've read in from the very same file from the second row as the column names for the data frame that's read in when I'm reading in the data. So if I've done this all correctly and I run this chunk, now if I look at my table, I have headers that are coming directly from that file. I have the timestamp, I have the record, VDIF, ptemp, and parflux. So that is the headers that I'm reading in. I also could have specified those headers directly if I wanted to rename the columns to something different from what they were in the original file. I could have just specified a vector of strings here for the call names to give those headers. Also note that if I look at the attributes of the table, that the names attributes have changed. So now I have the names that I'm reading in instead of those generic headers that I had before.